Hey, how's it going, everyone? My name is Derek Afasi. I'm the owner of Afasi Financial Group and RetireSharp.com. Today's topic I want to go over in depth: should I roll over a 401k to a new employer? So whether you have worked for a previous employer and you have an old 401k that's essentially sitting, with that previous employer, you just recently started a new job, and you're dealt with that situation that you could take your old 401k and roll it over into the new employer. What are the good things when doing so? What are the common traps that individuals make that mistake? And then also, what are some solutions on how you could leverage those old 401k monies into a better avenue that's going to correlate to your specific situation? So the way that I want to structure this video is to go over the basics of a 401k plan, what are the benefits of that 401k plan, and then what are the common mistakes when somebody has access to an old 401k and they basically do a wrong rollover, or they basically do a rollover that could be detrimental to their position, and then what are some different solutions to make sure that you're accentuating your position. So just like I mentioned in other videos, a 401k plan is a type of qualified employer-sponsored retirement plan. So what happens is the 401k is established for private institutions. So what typically happens is you get set up on a new job, and you're going to be receiving your different benefits package. So you're going to be receiving, this is your life insurance, this is your disability insurance, your health insurance, your different ancillary products like your dental insurance, accident, whatever that might be. And then you're going to get a really large book that's going to say, okay, you also have access to contribute into a type of retirement plan into our company 401k plan. What exactly does that mean? Well, each year that you're working, or every day that you're working, you have an option on whenever you get paid, so whether that's weekly, bi-weekly, monthly, etc., to take a portion of your dollars and place that into a type of retirement. Think of this like a bucket. So if somebody's going and they're making $100,000 in a given year, this is obviously being paid out by the employer, and this person has access to a 401k plan, they might say, okay, I want to put 5% away of my salary towards my 401k, towards my retirement. So out of this situation, we have $5,000, which is going into the 401k plan, is known as the contribution into the 401k plan. So because this is known as a qualified employer-sponsored retirement plan, it has certain tax qualifications or certain qualifications through the IRS known as pre-tax monies. So what that means is any contribution that you're making into this plan, like in this example, if this person put in $5,000 into the plan, at the end of the year, hypothetically, their adjusted gross income would be right around $95,000, because that $5,000 that went in on the contribution side is known as a tax deduction. There's two sides to this 401k bucket, which basically allows it to grow, or allows it to, or has a significant impact to it where it could decrease. And that other side is known as rate of return. So essentially, if you go and you had your 401k and you had that invested into a fixed account, somebody could go and keep putting contributions, and as long as your contributions and the rate of return was positive, the combination of those two things are going to be making your bucket larger and larger and larger at the end of the day, at the end of the year. But with the common mistake that occurs is this rate of return. How do individuals properly pick out this rate of return, and what is associated with this rate of return side? So this is going to help understand what happens with the old 401k plans, what happens with the new 401k plans, how to maximize this type of rate of return. And in order for that rate of return to either go up or go down is based upon the list of funding options that you have with your 401k. So a typical 401k plan might have anywhere between 5 to about 25 different funding options to choose. And they might say, okay, this is going to be, linked to stocks, to bonds, to different mutual funds. Mutual funds are going to be majority of what's in the 401k related plans. And based upon whichever allocation that you choose, so out of these 25 different options, if you go and you put 25% amongst 4 different funding options, well then, if all the funds, and let's say all 4 of these funds are linked to some sort of stock market risk, and the stock market goes up that year or that day, well then you're going to see a positive interest credit to your 401k account. So remember, it's the combination between contributions and rate of return which is going to grow that bucket. If the stock market, if you have those funds linked to the stock market and the stock market goes down, well then this rate of return is going to be negative, and hence there's going to be a smaller portion of your bucket. You're going to have a smaller bucket at the end of the day, at the end of the year. So a common mistake that occurs with these 401k plans, whether you had it invested in an old employer or you have it invested in the new employer, is how exactly do you pick these funds most effectively? What was exactly your strategy for choosing these 5 to 25? I want you to think of them as eggs in your basket. How did you properly choose these different funds? Did you just kind of pick and say, okay, well, this rate of return looked pretty good, and I'm just going to kind of shoot from the hip, and hopefully, as long as I'm contributing money into the bucket, this rate of return should be positive because the stock market should always be going up. And that's the mindset that's flawed. That's the mindset that has hurt so many individuals, especially seniors and baby boomers, in 2001 and 2008, because they were hoping that their accounts were going to grow large, and they got hit with that large 30% loss, 60% loss in a given day in a given year. So the first solution that we could help you guys out with is try to choose what is going to be the most optimized portfolio based upon your funding options that you have available. So we run something known as a 401k stress test, which shows you how you're currently investing your 401k and what are your chances for success if you keep that sort of investment strategy going. So, are you optimizing your different funding options properly? Are there slight tweaks that you could make to increase your average rate of return to get a lot less risk? Because regarding the stock market, understand that a lot of individuals just try to invest their monies in the market. Well, the market has 3 essential guarantees. The market could go up, the market could go sideways, and the market could go down. So on times when the market's going up, they're happy with their accounts. When the market goes sideways, they're a little bit nervous, saying, okay, I'm not seeing too much growth. And then when the market goes down, this is where you have all this panic, all this worry. So there's different ways to make sure that you're properly allocating your funding options so that you're trying to get the most amount of positive rates of return, so that as you're continuing to contribute into your 401k bucket, that positive rate of return is going to allow this bucket to grow larger and larger and larger. So that's the first solution is, okay, based upon what you currently have with your 401k, how are you currently investing it? So if you want to see options on a 401k stress test, simply give our 1-800 number a call. It's 1-800-566-1002, where we will show you scientifically what those results would be and give you those recommendations. Now understand that if your only retirement plan is a 401k, well, you're going to be susceptible to whatever those 5 to 25 different funding options are. If there's cruddy options in there, well, then there's only so much leverage that you could get with that rate of return. So that's essentially a negative, or you have limited funding options. You have limited funds, limited eggs in your basket to choose from. Another negative, you're thinking of this in the terms of a bucket, is you have to poke a couple of holes on the bottom of this bucket. What those holes are 401k related fees. So you have 401k related fees, and you also have mutual fund related fees that your account has to beat out each and every year just for your bucket to break even. So let's say if you stop contributing to your 401k account, you're just relying on that rate of return to grow that account, and you have fees of right around 1.5%. Well, that means that your account has to at least beat out that 1.5% just for your account to gain 0% that year. So, when you have a combination of fees and potential downward market losses, when you don't have a straight strategy in play, that could obviously be detrimental to your accounts. So what exactly is the solution, or what are some leveraging components that you could utilize when you have access to old 401ks? And does it make sense to roll that over into the new employer with the limited funds, or does it make sense to roll it over into something else? So one of the things regarding a 401k is when you're working for a company, you have certain restrictions to this 401k, meaning that you typically can't touch this 401k. Any monies within that 401k, or roll them over into better options until you sever employment, or until you might hit like an age-based service, retire, whatever that case might be. If let's say the 401k the fund provider basically changes, sometimes employers allow you to go and roll that over into an IRA or roll it over into what the new fund manager option is. So like if you had Fidelity was your company and then all of a sudden American Funds took over your 401k plan, sometimes they give you that option to say, okay, rather than going to the new American Funds 401k, you could go and roll that over into a type of IRA account. And the reason why I mention that is because there's two sides to that 401k growth. You have one side, which is the contribution side, and the other side, which is the rate of return side. So if you're eligible to have better funding options, if you're eligible to have essentially more eggs in your basket, why wouldn't you try to maximize out that rate of return? So this is where an IRA, like whenever you hear a 401k get rolled over into an IRA, traditional IRA account, what's essentially happening is this is known as a pre-tax qualified retirement plan. So when you roll it over into a pre-tax retirement plan through an IRA, through a traditional IRA, it's not as if you took this money, liquidated it, had to pay taxes on that money, and therefore try to reinvest it. What you're doing, you're just essentially transferring it from qualified to qualified, so it does not result in a tax implication. So when you have access to go and roll over your old 401k account, it usually makes more mathematical sense to place it into a specifically designed IRA to make sure that you could increase this rate of return or customize this IRA for your specific retirement goal. So I'm going to use examples for a couple of different age brackets to show you when you could design an IRA specific that's going to be better than just rolling into the new employer account. So let's say if you have somebody in their mid 30s or early 40s and they had monies in their old 401k account, they now severed that relationship with that old employer, they're working for a new company, and they get a notice saying, hey, you have an old 401k sitting here, we could go and roll it into the new employer plan. Well, the problem with the old employer plan was that you had about 5 to 25 different eggs in your basket to choose from, 5 to 25 different funds. That's very common with 401k. The new employer plan is going to have those same 5 to 25 different options. You might have a couple of different options in there, or you might have less funds to choose from or more funds to choose from, but typically you're going to be very limited on your funding options, therefore limiting you on the best funds to increase that rate of return. So if you have somebody that's a bunch of years out from retirement, why would they go and be susceptible to the limited funding options as opposed to take this money, roll it over into an IRA account where that could be more customized and you have anywhere between 3,000 to 5,000 different funds to choose from, and it could correlate exactly to your age, exactly to whatever your growth strategy is, could maximize a better asset allocation, meaning that when I talk about the stock market going up, going sideways, and going down, well, why would you only want to capture if a 401k, if those limited options only really allowed you to capture the upside of the market, but not capture gains when the market goes sideways or the market goes down? That's a problem. With IRAs, you could do proper asset allocation where you could invest into different things such as stocks, such as bonds, such as commodities, such as real estate, different things that allow you to allocate your dollars properly to make sure that if the market's going down, well, how could you get a gain into your account? The market goes sideways, how could you get a gain into your account? The market goes up, how could you get a gain into your account? And making sure that you're shifting out those allocations properly with many, many more eggs in your basket to choose from. So just as a growth perspective, this rate of return could be optimized by leveraging an IRA as opposed to just rolling it over into the new employer account. Now, in that situation, that person that was contributing to their old 401k was trying to leverage a growth strategy. So therefore, you create an IRA that has a better growth strategy, has more eggs in the basket to choose from, and give you more plentiful options with possibly lower cost, with a higher quality based funds that are more customized to that individual situation. What happens with the example, and these are more effective examples when, let's say you have somebody that's age 55 and they severed employment, now they're working for a new employer. How exactly can they leverage that old 401k account and design that into an IRA or multiple IRA accounts? So this is where we have a lot of education out there, and we say that there's three major things that on how somebody could retire with confidence, with pure confidence. They have to make sure that three different things are met. The first thing is they want to make sure that they have plentiful amount of income sources coming to them, income streams coming to them in retirement. The second thing is they want to make sure that they have an emergency fund, oh my gosh type moment available to them that they could access. And then the third thing is to beat out the pace of inflation, to have a type of inflationary protection and a type of growth strategy to combat the pace of inflation and not fall victim to purchasing power risk. So if we have an individual that's currently age 55 and they said, okay, well, I just severed my employment, I have old 401k accounts that have been sitting there for years, how exactly can I leverage this properly? How could I use this to my advantage because I have access to roll them over into specifically designed IRAs? And let's say that this person understands that they want to retire exactly at age 65. Why age 65? Because they could trigger Social Security income, and then also Medicare will come into play at their age 65 as well. So therefore, this is this hypothetical situation. This person's 55 years old right now. They're contributing monies into a new employer 401k account, but they have, let's call it $500,000 that's sitting with that old employer, that old 401k account. Regarding the situation, how much income do they need at that age 65 when they're looking to call it quits, when they're looking to go off into the sunset and try to enjoy their later years, enjoy their retirement? Well, maybe after we do a budget analysis and we're finding out what their expenses are today and then what we're going to determine what their expenses will be at that age 65, we understand that hypothetically this person needs $50,000 of income to the day that he or she lives till. If they have $50,000 in expenses by the time they're age 65, maybe half of those expenses are going to be fixed expenses. The other half are going to be inflationary based expenses, meaning increasing with the cost of goods and services, increasing with that purchasing power each and every day or each and every year. That is rule of thumb, increasing by about 2 to 4% in a given year. What exactly is a solution, or how can you leverage that old account to make sure that you're structuring the IRAs properly? And if it's $50,000 is the major goal, well, what are their income sources? Maybe they have Social Security income that's going to be $30,000. They have a pension plan, and that's going to be another $10,000 of income, and therefore they have a gap of $10,000 starting at age 65. So what this would show us is we could, if we have a $500,000 bucket, what we could do is calculate what would be the best IRA annuity account. The reason why I say annuities is because this is going to provide them lifetime income every month, every year until the day that they pass away. So what we could do is mathematically show them based upon what their area is, based upon what their age is, 55, and say, okay, well, what is the best contract currently paying you with a 10-year deferral that's going to, give you $10,000 by age 65? So maybe that dollar amount is going to be, $100,000. $100,000 that they have to place into an IRA annuity account today to therefore trigger $10,000 of lifetime income at their age 65. So this is the first IRA. And out of this 500,000 old 401k monies, all they needed was $100,000 to put into that IRA number one. And that's set up through an annuity. Your emergency fund, rule of thumb is that you should have about 6 to 12 months of emergency funds or liquid cash at any time that you could pull from. So therefore, maybe IRA number two would be a $50,000 IRA with a money market account. So something that's not susceptible to downward market losses. You're not going to have gains into that account, but just something that's sitting there as a kind of rainy day fund if you ever needed to pull from that account, especially when you're in those retirement years. So out of this $500,000, we put $100,000 to an IRA annuity, $50,000 into an IRA money market account, and then the very last one is to protect against inflationary needs. So this could be handled through a combination of different ways. You could leverage the remaining $350,000 and try to set them on optimized growth strategies where you're trying to really maximize the 3 guarantees in the stock market and make sure that you have proper asset allocation. You could utilize that through managed money. You could set that up through different fixed accounts, different fixed indexed accounts, different things that don't that prevent downward market losses from occurring. You could set up little laddering strategies, little micro annuities, small portions out of this 350 to get triggered at different intervals to say, okay, at age 65, $50,000 is income that's needed, so therefore $10,000 has to get spit off of the first IRA annuity. Well, maybe by age 68, that's going to be a $52,000 need. So therefore, we have another $2,000 get spit off on a 12, 13, 14-year deferred IRA annuity contract that we're setting up at that age 55. And therefore, you now have these guaranteed income streams that are getting triggered at different intervals to make sure that it's stepping up as your expenses are increasing. The income streams are also being laddered properly to increase. And then whatever's left over, that's pure liquid cash as well. And you're just trying to accentuate the heck out of that growth off of the best, customized portfolio allocations to say anywhere between 3,000 to 5,000 different funding options, different eggs in your basket that you could cherry pick, or we could cherry pick to make sure that's going to be ideal for whatever your risk tolerance is and your exact situation. And the reason why we like to go towards those 3 tiers, especially when someone's above the age of 50, is because there's a lot less room for risk. There's a lot less, or there's a lot larger increase to have a market disaster or a retirement disaster if you don't structure your old 401k plans properly. You could fall victim to the numbers. You could fall victim to the masses that did retire in 2001 and got hit with a large downward market loss. They were paying fees. They didn't really understand how to take out their dollars properly, and therefore they fell victim to something known as reverse dollar cost averaging, which is the combination of different fees, mutual fund related fees, advisor fees, downward market losses, pulling out income for those types of accounts. So if you think of it kind of in the terms of that bucket, now we have multiple holes coming out of this bucket of all negatives. And then when you have that downward market loss that occurs, like in 2008, like a minus 30%, well, that's a large impact. That's a lifestyle change if that occurs in your retirement years. So there's different ways on how you could customize and different ways on how you could protect yourself from those negatives, whether you're in your accumulation stage and just making sure that you have the power of compound interest working in a really good positive direction, or it's more towards your preservation and distribution phase when it's coming time to retire and you're nearing those years for retirement. So you're trying to put together like a perfect puzzle piece, pieces in a puzzle, to make sure that everything is going to work out properly. So those are the different benefits regarding taking the old 401k monies and rather than roll it over into the new employer, roll it over into specific designed IRA contract or multiple specifically designed IRA contracts to make sure one IRA might be set up for growth, another IRA might be set up for safety, another IRA might be set up for income, another IRA might be set up for inflationary protection, another IRA might be set up to do an inheritance maximization. God forbid you passed away, you wanted to make sure that there was a bucket that was being maximized specifically for your beneficiaries, for your children, for your spouse, whatever that case might be. So there's so many different combination of ways. It's not just roll it over into one IRA, it's what exactly is your situation, what is your current point A, what are your goals point B, and how do we make sure to create a roadmap for you to get there successfully. And time and time again, you could leverage that because you're eligible, because those are monies, those are old 401k monies, you're eligible to do the rollover. If you're currently working at that employer and you haven't changed, or you don't have some sort of qualification to roll it over into an IRA, well then essentially you just have to make sure that you're maximizing out that new plan properly, and you're trying to stack up your accumulation phase properly. So that's the most important takeaway regarding why it makes sense to go into an IRA rather than going to your new employer. But there are misconceptions regarding why individuals should take their old 401ks and throw it over into the new employer. And what I mean by that is something known as the employer match. So, like I mentioned from the beginning of the video, this bucket's going to grow 2 different ways. The bucket's going to grow by the contributions that you're making into the plan, and then also the rate of return that's growing into this plan. So when you go and you have access to an old 401k, we could optimize out this rate of return and give recommendations on what would be the best route regarding what your goals are, regarding what your specific situation is. One of the benefits of a 401k and the incentive why a lot of individuals place dollars into a 401k is because they typically get something known as an employer match, a company match. So in that example, if somebody's making $100,000 in a given year and they're putting away 5% of their salary into their 401k account, the reason why they might choose 5% or they might choose 3% of their salary is if that when they receive their employee benefits package, they might say, oh, well, we're going to match you up to 5% of your monies, or we might match you 50% up to 6% of your monies. What exactly does that match mean? And understand that this match has nothing to do with the old 401k monies and has nothing to do with the actual rate of return side on the new employer plan. So what this says is, let's say if, as an example, the match is 5%. What this says is if this person puts away $5,000, the company is also going to add $5,000, so therefore the contribution side is going to be $10,000 into this bucket. If, let's say, this person had a 5% match, but they ended up putting away 10% of their money, well, they would have made contributions of $10,000. The employer would have matched 5%, $5,000, and therefore it's going to be $15,000. So it's not saying if you add more dollars, you're only going to get up to the match. You're not going to get $1 more than what the match is. So let's say if this person decides to only put in 3%, but their match is 5%, they put in $3,000, they're going to be receiving $3,000. So it's going to be up to that amount. The reason why I mentioned the match is because when you're contributing to your new employer plan, it's usually most wise to add whatever that match is. So, if you're getting a 5% match, understand that that's 5%. That's free money that's being accumulated into your plan. So if you're putting in 5%, they're giving you 5%, you're getting 100% off of the contribution side on there. The misconception that I'm talking about is all because you're taking your old 401k monies and you're adding it into the new employer plan, that has nothing to do with the match. That only has to do with the how large your bucket is from inception, and then also the rate of return is just going to, anytime that this rate of return comes back more positive, well, then you're going to have a larger growth. So it doesn't, that matching aspect of it, the contribution side, that's going to remain unchanged. Whether you're throwing in $5,000 in a given year and you're getting a $5,000 match into that has nothing to do with you taking the old retirement account and putting it with the new employer. So I really want you to understand that aspect. The only thing that's happening is you're adding more dollars into this bucket, and that bucket is now being susceptible, even more dollars are being susceptible into the limiting funding options between those 5 to 25 funds, as opposed to monies you were able to take those old 401ks and roll it over into IRAs specific to what your goal is, specific to what your needs were. So in closing, I hope you found value in this video. At any point in time, you had certain topics or certain things I mentioned that interest you, please feel free to give our 1-800 number a call. It's 1-800-566-1002. We're available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, mornings, nights, weekends, holidays, whatever that case might be. And you could speak directly to a specialist. And you could say, hey, listen, I was watching the video online. I basically this topic was pretty interesting. I want you guys to run a 401k stress test, or I want you guys to see this is my current situation. What would you recommend that I go and utilize different IRA accounts, or should I roll that over into the new employer plan? How much should I be adding dollars into the new employer plan? What is the this is my match. These are my funding options. Anything from soup to nuts, that's essentially what we're going to try to do, or the specialist will try to help you out with. So make sure to just reference it, talk about your situation, and we'll make sure that the assistants will put over to the correct specialist. A more efficient way on how you could actually set an appointment would be to go through afasifinancial.com, or if you type in retiresharp.com, it's going to bring you all to the same place, to afasifinancial.com. And what you're going to notice is there's going to be a little icon that pops up on the bottom right-hand side to book your strategy session. So you could schedule an appointment through there. You could see exactly our calendar, and then you could leave us a note and saying, okay, what exactly do you want to talk about? And we'll make sure that the strategy specialist will be giving you a call at that specific point in time and have a conversation. We do things different than other advisors, than typical other advisors. We like to educate first and foremost. We like to educate you through literature pieces, through personalized videos, whatever the case might be that you find more favorable on how to be educated. And we want to make sure to show you exactly what is your situation, how did you get to your current situation, what are some things you did correctly, what are some different things you could have made slight tweaks to, and what are your ultimate goals. So really figure out what your ultimate goals are and then how to create a roadmap to get you from that point A to point B most effectively, most efficiently. What are some different pros and cons that individuals have created in the past? And we try to use a bunch of different measurements. We have a software in particular known as the Retire Sharp Planning System that allows us to aggregate different accounts and set up different recommendations on a more scientific measurement. To make sure that if we're going through your situation, we're going to give you recommendations to the decimal point. And there's no room for errors. It's basically retirement planning. You only have one chance to get things done correctly. You do not want to make a mistake. So that's why I believe that education is key. We are A+ rated on the Better Business Bureau. We've always had very good reviews. We've never had any complaints, and I do believe it's because of this methodical process. I want to thank you very much for watching this video, and we look forward to hearing back from you. Thank you.